This conference will now be recorded.
Chaturmukha Samarambham Vagbhadacharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryandam Vande Guru Parambaram. Ragadirogan Sadatanushaktan Asheshakaya Prasutan Asheshan Aulsukyamoha Aradidan Jakhana Yopurva Vaidyaya Namostu Tasmai. So very good evening to all of you, and we will continue with another session on Dravyadi Vidnyani. As we mentioned in our last session, we are supposed to start with the sloka which is displayed. That is Gurvadayo Guna Drivye Pruthivyadau Rasashraye Raseshu Vyapatishyande Sahacharyopacharana. That we explained. That sloka we concluded. Today we are supposed to start with the next sloka. That means Tatra Dravyam Guru Sthula Sthira Gandha Gunodbanam Parthivam Gaurava Sthairya Sanghadopachayavaham. That is the sloka what we are supposed to start with today. Here in this sloka, that means Tatra Dravyam Guru Sthula Sthira Gandha Gunodbanam Parthivam Gaurava Sthairya Sanghadopachayavaham. From here onwards, we find the description of Dravyas. Actually, that is our target, Dravyadi Vidnyaniyam. So, we already mentioned that Panchabhutatmakam tad and Vyapadeshastu Bhuyasa. So, based on that Bhuyasa Vyapadeshastva Nyayam, we find or we use the terms like this is a Parthiva Dravyam, this is a Nabhasa Dravyam, etc. etc. So that is Vyapadeshastu Bhuyasa. All Dravyas, Karya Dravyas, they are made out of all the 5 bhutas. They are made out of all the 5 bhutas. But still, because of the Bhuyasa Vyapadeshastva Nyayam, we have 5 major categories of Dravyas, Karya Dravyas around us in this physical world. Interestingly, our body is also one among the Karya Dravyas in this physical world. Now, from this shloka onwards, we find the explanation of different types of Dravyas. What will be the characteristics of a Parthiva Dravya? What will be the characteristics of a Apya Dravya or Jaliya Dravya? Like that. And when we go through the explanation, we find that everything is explained in 2 specific modes or with the two different types of details. One is about its gunas, and second is based on its karma on the human body. It's the karma on the living body. So here also we find it. In the first line, we find Tatra Dravyam Gurusthula Sthira Gandha Gunolbanam. So it is all explanation about gunas. And Gauravasthairya Sanghadopajayavaham is the explanation about the karma. Such a Dravya is known as a Parthiva Dravya. It's not Prithvi, but it is a Parthiva Dravya. So at this point, we find the explanation of gunas in detail. I mean, not in detail. We see the mentioning about gunas. Like this Parthiva Dravya means Guru Sthula Sthira Gantha Gunolpanam. And we have to understand what is this list of gunas mean, or what is this list of gunas intended for. Generally, we have a notion in our minds that everything is based on gunas. The entire Ayurveda is something which deals with gunas. But when we look into the present textbook, what we are following, that is Ashtanga Hridayam, there also we find the terms gunas used in different contexts, in different intentions, in different ways, but hardly we find any detailed description about these gunas. That is the interesting part. That means without a proper descriptive presentation of gunas, individual gunas, those gunas are used extensively to describe the content, the topic. Similarly, we extensively use the tattva principle called rasa, isn't it? Shadrasa, the concept of shadrasa, we can see used in different contexts in detail with prime importance. And obviously, we expect that there will be a section in the textbook which will be explaining in detail about the basic concepts of rasa, and we look for it, and to our surprise and to our comfort, I should say, we find a chapter called Rasabhediya. Thank God. There is a chapter called Rasabhediya. So I always used to say to my students in the college or my friends with whom I talk that there is a missing chapter in Ashtanga Hridayam. There is a missing chapter in Ashtanga Hridayam, and the name of that chapter is Gunabhediya. There should be a chapter at least. If it is not missing, I think we have to add at least. There should be a chapter called Gunabhediyam, because we use the gunas, concept of gunas extensively, but we do not describe what these gunas are. So obviously, this is a matter of great interest. This is a matter of great concern as well. From where should we get all the details or descriptions of these gunas? That is why we have an advice from various acharyas that Egam Shastram Adhyano na Vidyat Shastransche Tasmad Bahusruta Shastra Vijaniyat Chikitsaka. So the Vaidyas are supposed to be well versed in the Anubandha Shastras. So this is a classical example. This is a classical example to point out the necessity of being Bahusruta Shastra. Wherever we find important technical details, we find gunas. See, take the example of doshas in the first chapter itself. Vayu pittam kaphaschedi trayo doshaha samasataha. Then while explaining or introducing the doshas, we find that tatra ruksho leghushida ghara sukshmaschalo nilaha. This is the way in which dosha is introduced, vayu is introduced. So if you look at this explanation closely, you will find that it is actually that tatra ruksho leghushida ghara sukshmaschalo nilaha. That statement does not disclose what vayu is, but it discloses how vayu is. There is no definition of vayu, but what is explained is how vayu is, or how pitta is, how kapha is, and that how is answered in terms of gunas only. In terms of gunas only. Similarly, we can find many situations where this explanations spin around gunas, whether it is samanya vishesham, whatever it is. But unfortunately, we don't have an exclusive chapter on guna. So we have to spend some time, maybe 1 or 2 sessions, sometimes less than that. I do not know how much time we will take or we will spend for it. To understand at least some basics. We will be taking some clues or leads or quotes from other shastras, other granthas, and we will have some idea what these gunas are, or how they are divided, what they are meant for, or what does it mean. Otherwise, I think our understanding will be partial. Okay, so let us see. I hope, or I'm sure that all of the participants in the session will be knowing that, okay, there are 6 padarthas, 6 categories explained in Ayurveda or accepted in Ayurveda, of which one is guna. Samanyancha, Visheshancha, Guna, Dravyani, Karmacha. Isn't it? That 6 things, 6 categories, 6 padarthas explained. Everybody knows. I'm not going to the details of that thing. But when you look around on that particular statement, standing on that particular statement, you will find that this explanation of these 6 padarthas, at least these 6 padarthas, are not original to Ayurveda. This concept is not original to Ayurveda. Instead, it is taken from Vaisheshika Darshanam, Kanadam or Kanadam, Vaisheshika Darshanam. Vaisheshika Darshanam is a school, or Vaisheshikam is a school which is trying to study and explain the physical world. isn't it? The Bhuta Prapancham, the physical world, that is its interest, area of interest. To understand, to analyze, to explain, to document, to predict about this physical world. So in that context, this gunam is very important, because gunam is one basic tool with which this physical world is also explained. So they use extensively. They use this concept of gunam extensively, and what Ayurveda did is to borrow this concept of guna for all the padarthas, samanyam, vishesham, dravyam, gunam, karmam, samavayam. So these things were borrowed from the Vaisheshika darshan. So it is supposed to be a pre-Vaidya training, pre-Shastra training. Actually, it is not for Vaidya alone. For all types of Vishesha or Vidnyana or Shastra Jnana, it was essential in the earlier days. That was a standard norm. There is a saying called Kanadam Paniniyam cha Sarvashastropakaragam. Paniniya means Vyakarana. Kanada means this branch, Vaisheshika. So Kanadam Paniniyam cha Sarvashastropakaragam. So wherever somebody is planning to gain some sort of a Vijnanam, he should have a preparatory or some sort of a precursor or an introductory training in Kanada. This is more relevant when we come to the domain of Ayurveda, Vaidya. So we are all supposed to have some detailed learning about this padarthas. That is why we have a padartha vijnanam. Without a proper understanding of this gunam, a proper learning of the gunam, it is almost impossible to get into and travel through the realm of Dravyam or Dravyadi Vidnyani. But interestingly, it is as I told earlier, it is a borrowed one. So when you borrow something, obviously you are expected to make necessary alterations in it to suit to your needs. That has happened in the case of this padarthas as well. The way in which the gunas or the concept of gunas or individual description of each gunas is conceived in the Padartha Vijnana, and the way in which the same gunas or each individual guna is perceived to suit the needs of Ayurveda. If we compare these two, we will understand that many things are modified to suit the needs of Ayurveda. But the rasa, virya, vipaga types of things, which are also considered or can be considered as padarthas in the special context of Dravyadi Vijnaniyam, certain names like rasa, virya, vipaga, prabhava, these things are unique to the domain of Ayurveda. Maybe Kannada not interested in understanding what the prabhava of a dravya in the way in which it is understood in Ayurveda. Or he may not be, or he may be the least bothered person about the rasa, the concept of rasa, as it is explained or accepted or conceived in Ayurveda. So they are supposed to be the Swatantra principles, Swatantra principles of Ayurveda, whereas the guna is not a Swatantra sapna in Ayurveda. They are borrowed ones. So that is why they are not included with all the possible descriptive background in the textbooks of Ayurveda. But it is expected that we have some basic understanding about all these things. Of course, Acharya Charaka and Acharya Sushruta as well, they definitely make serious effort to introduce all these concepts in their respective samhitas. So we will be seeing a few of them, so that our purpose of understanding Dravyadi Vidnyaniyam in detail is met with. So coming to Charaka Samhita in this particular point, I'm really sorry that I am going to some extra portions than Ashtanga Hridaya, and the particular sloga which is displayed by Vaidya Nilesh, I think if we are not going to change it all through the day, that the sloga will be there. Okay, let it be there. So when we look at Charaka Samhita, we find a description about gunas, what guna is, or which are the gunas that we consider in our domain of knowledge. It is like this: Sartha Gurvadayo Buddhi Prayatnandaha Paradayaha Guna Proktaha. Charaka Samhita. Sartha Gurvadayo Buddhi Prayatnanda Paradayaha Guna Proktaha. So Sartha Artham Indriyarthas, Gurvadaya Gurvadi Gunas, Buddhi Prayatnandaha, Buddhi Sukham Dukkham Ichha Dvesham Prayatnam. They are known as Atma Gunas. Then Paradaya, Paradi Gunas. Paradi Gunas are Paravaratve Yuktischa Sankhya Samyoga Evacha Vibhagascha Prathaktvam Parinama Adhapicha Samskarobhyasa Ityede Gunatneya Paradaya. 10 in number. In total, we find 41. 5 Indriyarthas, 20 Gurvadis, then Buddhi Prayatnanda, Buddhi Sukham Dukkham Ichha Dvesham Prayatnam, 6. Paradaya, 10. Paravaratve Yuktischa Sankhya Samyoga Evacha Vibhagascha Prathaktvam Parinama Madhapicha Samskarobhyasa, 10. So all these things are important. All these things are important. Indriyarthas are known as Vaisheshika Gunas or Vishesha Gunas because they are Vishesha in the context of each Indriyas. Buddhi Prayatnanda, they are known as Atma Guna. Then Gurvadi Gunas, they are known as Vimshadi Gunas, sometimes 20, indicating the number, or Sharira Guna, specifying that this is more related to our understanding of Sharira. Paradi Gunas, they are known as such Paradi Guna, or sometimes known as Samanya Gunas. Gurvadi Gunas are also sometimes known as Samanya Gunas. So of these types or classification of gunas, generally I think there will be some references about Guruvadi gunas maybe in our text. That is what we use extensively when we discuss about Dravyas, when we discuss about Nidana, many things. And in Ashtanga Hridaya, the least discussed ones are Paradi gunas. The least discussed one. They are part of the text. They are extensively used in the description, but they are not specifically explained or specifically described, giving due consideration. So we will see them not in detail, but just some basic details. I hope I'm still in the meeting now. I hope I am audible. Okay. So we will see something about Paradi gunas. First, para and apara. Para and apara. Para-aparatvam. So this para and apara, in their original context, reflects the remoteness and the proximity. So para and apara are the gunas which indicates remoteness and proximity in their basic idea, in this, their basic context. When we consider the remoteness, it is always relative, isn't it? Relative remoteness. Same is the case with proximity, the relative proximity. As far as a far away object is concerned, it has got a relative paratvam. Relative paratvam. Similarly, in something which is close by or nearby, it has got a relative aparatvam. So paratvam and aparatvam are indicative of remoteness and proximity based on dik and kalam. Dik and kalam. So when you consider the far away object, we say that it has got a relative spatial paratvam. And in a nearby object, there is a relative spatial aparatvam. In an aged person, an elderly person, there is relative kalakritam. Kalakritam, that means temporal. So in an elderly person, there is a temporal paratvam. And in a young man or young person, there is relative temporal aparatvam. So that is kalakritam. The previous one was dikkritam. When we look at the explanations regarding the paraparatvam in Charaka Samhita, Deshakala Vayomana Paga Virya Rasadishu Paraparatve, we meet with the concept of paraparatvam In these descriptions, or when we deal with these ideas, which ideas? Desha, Kala, Vaya, Mana, Paga, Virya, Rasadi. So there we will have to deal with the idea of Paraparatvam. Everyone knows that we use this word Paraparatvam to explain or indicate the Shreshthada. Param, isn't it? Param shows the Shreshtham. It is also known as Varam. Paro Bhudadaya Dharma. So that shows the Shreshthada. Aparam, Avaram. That shows the other end, which gives an inferior hue. It is very commonly used. In the context of Vayas, we already saw. In the context of Manam, we use the Param and Aparam. In all these contexts, I'm not going to the finest details of all these things with examples. It is most of them are well known. Actually, they are all somewhere or other can be seen revolving around the basic idea. That means the Dikritam and Kalakrita Parapartu. Anyway, I think for those who would like to get more about these things, I think some extra reading on maybe Tarka Sangraham or something like that will be helpful. Now the third one is Paraparatve Yuktihi. Third one is Yuktihi. Yuktihi cha Yojana. Yuktischa Yojana Yatu Yujyade. That is how it is explained. Yojana. So the qualification of something to be appropriate with a situation. The qualification of something which makes it appropriate to a given situation. That is known as Yukti. Tishtatyubari Yuktijnaha. Isn't it? Charaga mentions about the qualification of a Vaidya as Yuktijnaha. Desha Kalashraya Yuktihi. We find many things like that. In the selection of a particular Aushadham or the selection of a particular Kalpana, we have this consideration. The other day, I think in one of our discussions, somebody was asking, where do we select Churna Kalpana? So we are thinking about the Yukti. That means where the Churna Kalpana is appropriate. That is the question. So in all these selections, this concept of Yukti is implied. In the explanation of all the Dravyas, in say maybe chapters like Shodhanadi Gana Sangraham, Trayastrimshad Idi Prokta Vargaha Teshu Alabhadaha Yunjyad Tadvidham Anyacha. If you feel that okay, something is appropriate in this context, you may include it. That is Yukti. Dravyam Jahyad Ayaugigam. Ayaugigam Dravyam Jahyad. Because something is seen inappropriate, then you throw it away, doesn't matter. So in all these applications, or in sometimes we find, okay, Sanskritam Shidam Ushnam va tasmad Dharoshnamewa va. So yunjyad vibhajya kale yunjita. So there is the appropriateness. Kashaya pana pathyanner dashaha idi lenkhide sarpir dadyad kabhe mande vadapittottare jare. There is a yukti, appropriateness. So that property, that qualification is known as yukti. Then sankhya. We have some other qualification, other gunas like samyogam, samskaram, which we are going to see later. And of course, when you look at the commentary, you can find Chakrapani mentioning that, okay, there are opinions that, okay, this yukti need not be considered separately because they can be included in the description of samyogam or parinamam or samskaram. But I think because of the special interest given to the idea of yukti in Vaidya, it is included as a special guna. That's all. Then the fourth one is paraparatve yuktischa sankhya. It is sankhya. What is sankhya? Sankhya syad ganitam. Charakam. Sankhya syad ganitam. So the act of enumerating, gananam. So the quality or qualification of something that facilitates the act of enumeration, that is sankhya. Egam dvi, isn't it? Dvividhobhakramanam, shadubhakramam, panchakarmam. We make many enumerations. Ashtodariyam. So that particular quality, egatvadi vyavahara heduhu sankhya, that is the definition what we find in Tarka Sangra. Egatvadi vyavahara heduhu sankhya. So it is very important. Wherever it is relevant, I think that is not the question. Where it is not relevant, that is the question. Because that much closely associated is the concept of sankhya with our learning. There is one term called sankhya samprapti, isn't it? Nanarupair asanghyeyaih vikareih kupitamalaha tapayanti tanum. Asanghyeya. So when we are dealing with the sankhya, then only we get the concept of asangheyatva, infinite, which cannot be enumerated. Asanghyeyaih vikareih kupitamalaha tapayanti tanum. So that particular guna is known as sankhya. Then next is samyogam. Samyogam. Yoga saha samyoga uchyade dravyanam dvandva sarvaiga karmajo nitya evacha. Charakam. Yoga saha samyoga uchyade dravyanam dvandva sarvaiga karmajaha anitya evacha. It is the samyoga. Dravyanam samyoga. Samyoga between dravyas. And it can be ega karmajam, or it can be sarva karmajam, or sometimes it can be dvandva karmajam. And one more point mentioned is anitya eva. It is anitya. We will come to it later. So these are the points explained in the definition. So it is good. Samyoga is the term which reflects that quality, that qualification of something which can reflect the combination of two things. Need not be two, but togetherness. That's all. And we find that it can be eka karmajam, it can be dvandva karmajam, it can be sarva karmajam. Simple ideas. Like see, when we are we just meet a friend, then we extend our hand and say hello, and we shake hand with the other person. So when you shake hand, there is a samyoga of both the hands, both the palms. But only one person is extending his hand and the other person is not moving at all. There is no samyoga. Both the hands should come together and hold the other person's hand. So there is karmam from two, dvandva karmaja samyogam. That is dvandva karmaja. You're sitting on a table and going to eat something which is placed in a plate in front of you. Then for the sake of eating, you're taking one spoon which is placed nearby. So when you pick the spoon, there is a samyoga between your hand and the spoon. Your hand will be extending towards the spoon, but the spoon will not be extending towards the hand. But still samyoga happens. So that is a ega karmaja samyoga. The spoon is not involved in the karma. That is ega karmaja. Similarly, when all the members, suppose you are making a pottery with a dhanyam. So inside the dhanyam there is samyogam, and that samyogam is sarva karmajam. All the dhanyas, all individual grains of the dhanyas are doing the karma of sitting together inside the pottery. So it is known as sarva karmaja samyogam. Oh, these are all technical things, but when interesting thing is that when we look at our day-to-day business in Vaidya, all these things are happening, all these things are used unknowingly. All these ideas of the samyogam is used. Actually, this samyogam is about relation, isn't it? It is a relation, and relation is actually there is a prakaranam in that context called sambandham, and the sambandham we will find, okay, that is the relation, and which explains what is actually the relation between a dharmam and a dharmi, or an avayavam and avayavi, or a jadi and vyakti. All these things are explained in terms of this sambandham, and the sambandham is of multiple types. Like these are all related to the Tarka Sangraha. Vritti Niyamakam and Vritti Aniyamakam. Again, I'm not going to the finer details. It is quite difficult. We will have to start another session on Padartha Vijnanam. And in one among this vritti niyamaga sambandham has got three types called. One is samyogam, second is samavayam, and third one is visheshanata. So that is a part, one description about the guna called samyogam. Then we find vibhagam as the next guna. It is the opposite of samyogam. Vibhagastu vibhakti syad. Vibhagastu vibhakti syad. Viyogo, another possibility. Bhagashograha. Vibhagastu vibhakti syad. Viyogo bhagashograha. So it can be vibhagaha tu vibhaktihi. Vibhakti is separation actually. Split, that relation is broken. It is split. Vibhajanam. In Tarka Sangraha you will find the guna which is samyoga nashaka is known as vibhaga. It is the qualification of something wherein you understand that two objects are different, separate, that is the right word. They are separate. That guna is known as vibhaga. Again, I think this idea is very liberally used in our daily vyavahara, daily business. So there is a question. So vibhagam happens in this given idea only when there was samyogam earlier. Is it so? That is the question. Need not be. That is the answer. When we perceive something as staying separately in the beginning itself, in advance itself, with its own identity, then also we should understand that there is vibhaga. Bhagasho graha. When we say that, okay, this body is divided into 6 parts, Shirondaradhirdvau bahu, Saktinicha, Samasataha, Shadangamangam, that is also a vibhaga. When the academy in the college is divided into 14 departments, that is also a vibhaga. In the beginning itself, we are dividing it into different departments. Not first making all of them as a single department, then making splitting the samyogam and making them into vibhagam. It is not like that. By default, it is like that. So this idea of vibhagam is very important in our chikilsa. This is very important. You see, the shadangam that I already explained. When we learn about the vyayamam, vibhakta ghanagatratvam, it is about vibhagam. Vibhakta ghanagatratvam. Or when in the case of shodhana chikilsa, Koshtam vibhajya bhaishajya matram mandrabhimandridam. So koshtam vibhajya. So we are using this idea very clearly. When we are putting a particular leba in a particular area, making sure that it is not spilling over to the nearby areas. Actually, we are making some sort of a vibhagam of that desham. Many examples can be seen like that. That is vibhagam. Next is about prithaktuam. I think we will complete the idea of prithaktuam. Rest we will see later. So this prithaktuam and vibhagam, sometimes they are confused. Prithaktuam syad asamyogo vailakshanyam anekata. That is how it is explained by Charaga. So the qualification of something which is the basis of considering it with the ideas of asamyogam or vailakshanyam or anekata is called as prithaktuam. Something, say there are two things, and these two things, there is no possibility of bringing samyogam of these two. Then there is prithaktuam in them. They are separately placed. You cannot bring them together. That is prithak. Something which is kept apart, two things or three things or whatever it is. Then there is prithak. Matram tripaligam kuryad sneham akshigayoho prithak. The quantity is tripaligam prithak tripaligam sneham akshigayoho. Not combined, separate. In Pudabhagam we find Vidyamatram prithak pindam sne mamsa bheshaja kalkayoho. Not together, kept apart. So there is asamyoga. Similarly, suppose there is Thailam, there is Kritam. Somebody who is familiar with this Thailam and Kritam can make out this is Kritam, this is Thailam. Why or how? The Lakshanas are different. Vailakshanyam is there. Between Thailam and Kritam, there is Vailakshanyam. Because of that Vailakshanyam, they can be identified, they can be separated, they can be identified as separate. That Vailakshanyam is also Prithak. Similarly, Anekata, that is also a type of Prithakva. In a group, in a set, each member maintains his or her identity. That is also an example of Prithakva. Suppose we have a heap of wheat grains. So in total, it is a heap of wheat grains. But within that heap, each member, each wheat grain is separate from the other. So that anekata in the heap of wheat, that is also due to the guna called Prithaktu. This is also, we are using all these things, isn't it? Bhudadya sparshano bhayo nirdishtascha prathak prathak. In different contexts, without mixing, in different contexts, whatever is explained as Bhudadya sparshano bhayo. So there is a prathak concept of prathaktu. So that is prathaktu. We have three more gunas in this connection, which we will see in our next session. It's already, past the 9 o'clock limit. So we will see these things once again in the next, the remaining three we will see in our next session, which will make, I hope, our understanding of a dravya, its usage, its selection, its precision, all these things more clear. Okay. With that, we will conclude today. Thank you one and all, and Shubharatri.
Yes, thank you, Prasad sir, very much. I think with this we'll conclude today, sir, and we'll meet in our next session,
Fine.
which,
All right.
which will be on Wednesday,
Yes, next Wednesday.
10th of August.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes,
So next class will be on Wednesday evening instead of Thursday evening.
yes.
Yes, yes. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Shubharatri to all of you.
Shubharatri, sir.